Welcome to another exciting episode of Musa and Show. Here is what we have today.
Sanibona kwivideo namuhla ngifisa ukukhuluma ngalo mshado we-ANC ne-DA. Ziningi kakhulu izinto ezenzeka phakathi kodwa ngingakangeni kumshado we-ANC ne-DA. ANC kukhona okuhle ngeke ngakubona kwenzile noma ngingayithandi yona kodwa kukhona okuhle ngeke ngakubona kwenzile. Manje ngithi angikuncome ngizwe Provincial Gauteng okubhanyaza lusufi ekhuluma ngokuthi indaba yabo teachers assistants izobuya ngoba ezinye zeindlela abazizamayo ukuze bazame ukureduce unemployment. Siyakhumbula ukuthi bakhona abantu abaqasheka bayithola leyo mali abayithola angazi not kwakumalini noma 3.5 noma malini kodwa kwakungefani. Ngizwe bethi ke lelo hlelo lavaleka bahlela ukulivula. Sengithi nje kulokho angiyincome ANC kodwa singaluthwa yilokho. Asingaluthwa yilokho bese sithi hayi ANC kukhona ongcane engasenzela khona. Ngizomcaphuna ke ekhuluma ngalo lelo hlelo bese singena kule ndaba engifisa sikhulume ngayo yomshado wabo phakathi kwayo ne-DA. Sizokhumbula ukuthi enyangeni ezedlule i-ANC iphasise umthetho we-expropriation bill. I-DA yawuchallenge ye-court yawufaka icala. I-AfriForum yasuka la yayi-America. Lento yenza ukuthi ubudlelwane phakathi kwe-America ne-South Africa bungabi buhle. Kuningi okwenzekile ngoba bafike baqamba amanga wathiwa kubulawa ama-white farmers ku-confiscate umhlaba. Ziningi nje izinto ezikhulunyiwe lapho Trump azathi u-ofera khona ama-Afrikaners ukuthi bangeza bazohlala America under kuma-refugee camp. Sizokhuluma nje kodwa noma singeke singena kodwa ngizama ukuthi ngiveza umsuka wokuthi kugcine kunobudlelwane obufuneka bulungiswe phakathi kwe-South Africa ne-America. Kune video futhi la ngifuna ukuyifaka ka Nelson Mandela kunento ayisho eminyakeni edlule wathi inkinga ye-America. Lento mawilalela into eyenzeka manje sizocaphuna kupanyaza lusufi bese sibuya singena ke kule video le.
When you create opportunities for people, then you are accused. If you don't create them, you are accused as well. Because what happens is that it's a national program. That's not our provincial program, but we could not allow young people to be unemployed. We stepped in with an intention that national will then renew it. When national took time to renew it, unfortunately, we had to let it go. It's only now that national have come back, and that's why we are reinstating it. The election this year, no. So it can't be an accusation that we're doing this for sake of elections. We're doing this so that those young people that don't have opportunities can get opportunities. We're doing this so that majority of our young people can be active in the economy of our province. We are also doing this to create skills development for our young people who need to acquire these particular skills. So those that are accusing us of electioneering, it's just people that are lazy to think or people that have an attitude towards how government functions.
Ngoba umuzwa ke uProvincial Gauteng upanyaza lesufi ekhuluma lolu hlelo lolu babefuna ukuthi libe uhlelo luzokwenzeka national kodwa ke national ayizange izil adopt seliyabuya ke manje lokuthi kube nalena bekuthiwa abo teachers assistants babonile babanye bayitholile imisebenzi kwangafana ngoba phela kunokuthi abantu behlale nje bengenzi lutho. Siyakuncoma ke lokho kodwa ke futhi akucacisa la ukuthi abakwenzi lokhu ngoba sekuza ama-elections abakwenzi lokhu babekwenzela ama-elections. Siyazi ukuthi kunama local government elections ngonyaka ozayo. Kutheke i-ANC mangabe ithumela ama-delegates e-America kwathola ukuthi ama-delegates wakhona wemukeleki kahle kodwa i-DA yathatha igxathu yokuthumela wayo ama-delegates afike emukelwa. Ngicela uzwe ukuthi ugogozile utheni mayelana nalolo daba.
Perhaps it is the idealist in me, but I do think that this collision course will be interrupted for the better. However, the very worst case scenario is now a possibility, and that fact alone should be enough for us to identify that threat, speak its name, and think about what is required to avoid it. This moment requires sane, rational dialogue and critical thinking. That is the only way we will avoid a global calamity. Meanwhile, China is happy to do what it has always done, sit on the sidelines and wait it out, as its economy grows in strength while its enemies finance their wars. If South Africa is to chart a course in these perilous waters, it is obvious that we cannot sit back and allow the ANC to drive our foreign policy in its own party interests. The stakes, simply put, are far too high. That is why the DA sent its own delegation to Washington recently, where we had meetings at a very senior level to ensure that we keep the channels of communication open and provide an alternative perspective to that beamed to the world from Luthuli House. We have to, because the ANC is absolutely determined to keep us out of foreign policy, which we believe will have profoundly negative consequences for South Africa, as it already has. And this won't be the last of the international delegations we will be undertaking to fight South Africa's corner, while the ANC promotes its party interests over South Africa's. But back home, we have had a paradigm shift of our own, and of course that is the GNU. The 2024 election was emblematic of the trend that
uFloyd Shivambu oSecretary General womkhonto wesizwe party ubhale kanjena ku-X wakhe wathi ugovernment ocontradictayo ongavumelani kuma-foreign policy objectives and approach akusu-government loyo at all. Uthi kuFloyd i-confusion kuma-foreign policy izokhoza i-anxiety ne-discomfort kusimo samanje nekusasa, especially kuma-strategic economic and political international partnerships. Okusho uFloyd la ukuthi uma abantu beku-government bephikisana, lokho kuzokwenza ukuthi ukusebenzisana namazwe lawo omhlaba kube inkinga, ngoba phela uma nina ninodwa ningavumelani kufike lo niphumezana lodwa kufike lo asho kunye kufike omunye asho kunye, lokho nje kuyayibulala ama-plans, ngoba phela kunama-strategy awabheka ukuthi ama-economic strategies owesikhathi samanje nesikhathi esizayo, ngoba niphambene nangembono. Kodwa-ke u-Secretary General we-ANC uFikile Mbalula uphendule kanjena yena.
You have genuine partners in the DA who feel completely otherwise, who feel the influence of the party on the state is problematic, who feel that they are left out of the greater conversation as far as foreign policy is concerned, that their influence, their allies, their perspective is completely shut out the door because the ANC is intent on the state modeling what has always been before GNU came into existence.
The DA, like other political parties, is a non-state actor. In this particular instance, is a non-state actor, and then they may have a foreign policy, but states only respect what we call other state actors. The DA is a non-state actor. They may have a foreign policy, but states relate to other state actors. And that dichotomy must be respected. That Helen Zille can have her own view about what must happen in the world. It is not a state disposition. She's not in power. She's not leading government, foreign policy in this particular instance. So no, let me explain that particular point, which must be understood. In this particular instance, the president and his executive are state actors, and they've got the responsibility to restore relations among states for the benefit of all South Africans. For the benefit of all South Africans, not only ANC. If it was to be ANC and selfish like it has been distorted by Helen, it will mean something else. Because the fact of the matter, our foreign policy is embedded on the principle of human solidarity and justice. And it is informed by our own history. Our foreign policy is embedded on the principle of multilateralism. Okay? We don't act outside the United Nations and the African Union and SADC. We don't act on our own, we act with others. We are not a superpower. we are advocating for multiple polarization of the world, where nations work together and there's no big brother.
I hear all of that.
So I'm saying that is your foreign policy, which informs our state interaction with other states. What will the ANC be in that, which is a non-state actor? It will mean that the ANC will say America under Donald Trump is on steroids on aggression of other states. Before we name a school in South Africa, we must report to America. We are reduced to a colony in a very short space of time. We are actually being bullied. And that is why we say our state must safeguard our interest, work with America, normalize relations if there's anything that is there, but at the same time, do not lead us to bullyism of the United States. We support the South African state government led by the president when it espouses in the state of the nation. We will not be bullied.
Akuchazayo uMbaxi la ukuthi i-DA infana na wonke ama-political parties ayisona i-state, yebo ingxenye ye-government, kodwa i-state sinabantu, upresident executive yakhe abarepresenta i-state ofuneka bahlangane nabamazwe kukhulunywe indaba ezisuke thinta i-foreign policy. Uthi uyakuzwa futhi okushiwo uGoguzile ukuthi le i-ANC actor lokho ikwenza ngoba yenzela i-ANC, ukuthi kodwa bona kunjalo, bona basuke benzela i-South Africa yonke, futhi ama-policy abo aguide i-South Africa noma behambelana ne-African Union, behambelana ne-UN, kodwa ne-SADC, kodwa kufanele yonke i-decision ethathwayo ibe guided by i-history, nanokuthi lento yenziwayo iyenzela ukubenefit abantu base-South Africa, hayi ukuthi kuyonke into ezophasiswa afuna kubonakala ukuthi i-America iyahambelana nayo noma ihambelani nayo, ngoba uma kunjalo akuhlukanga nokuthi i-South Africa still isese-colonized. Manje njengoba i-America ingahambelani ne-expropriation bill, ngenze example la angayishongo kodwa uMbalula, sekufuneka manje iyekwe ngoba nake i-America ihambelane nayo. Sizokhumbula kodwa ukuthi inkinga enkulu ye-America uyishilo u-CIC uJulius Malema ukuthi inkinga ye-America ukuthi South Africa ine-relationship ne-Iran kanti yona inenkinga nayo. Athi ngicaphune u-former president uNelson Mandela bese siyivala ivideo.
Let us move on to our next questioner at the microphone over there. Mr.
Welcome to America, Mr. Mandela. I'm Ken Edelman. Those of us who share your struggle for human rights and against apartheid have been somewhat disappointed by the models of human rights that you have held up since being released in jail. You've met over the last 6 months 3 times with Yasser Arafat, who you have praised. You have told Gaddafi that you share the view and applaud him on his record of human rights and his drive for freedom and peace around the world. And you have praised Fidel Castro as a leader of human rights and said that Cuba was one of the countries that's head and shoulders above all other countries in human rights, despite the fact that documents at the United Nations and elsewhere show that Cuba is one of the worst. I was just wondering, are these your models of leaders of human rights? And if so, would you want a Gaddafi or an Arafat or a Castro to be a future president of South Africa?
One of the mistakes which some political analysts make is to think that their enemies should be our enemies. That we can and we will never do. We have our own struggle which we are conducting. We are grateful to the world for supporting our struggle. But nevertheless, we are an independent organization with its own policy. And the attitude of every country towards, our attitude towards any country is determined by the attitude of that country to our struggle. Yasser Arafat, Colonel Gaddafi, Fidel Castro support our struggle to the hilt. There is no reason whatsoever why we should have any hesitation about hailing their commitment to human rights as they are being demanded in South Africa. Our attitude is based solely on the fact that they fully support the anti-apartheid struggle. They do not support it only in rhetoric. They are placing resources at our disposal for us to win the struggle. That is the position.
Yabona mawulalele uformer president la Nelson Mandela njengoba echaza ukuthi inkinga labantu bathathe ngathi izitha zabo sekuyizitha zamazwe lawa amanye kanti impi yabo phela ayihlangene namanye amazwe. So ukuthi America ay relationship yabo neIran ihamba kanjani lokho akuchazi ukuthi South Africa ufuna ingene lezo zinto lezo. Kodwa inayithatha inqumo zayo ngezathu zabo zokuthi bona bayidingelani ubudlelwane babo buhamba kanjani. Ayihlukanga kakhulu into eshuwo uSecretary General weANC okufikile Mbalula nale eshuwo Nelson Mandela la. Ikhona ivideo la asho khona uGoguzile ethi inkinga eSouth Africa ukuthi support iIran kanti America ay support against Iran. So ngeshwa ke angiyifakanga la kodwa abantu bayayazi iyona into ayishoyo le echazwa ke ulo umbalolo ukuthi uma ke ngaba njalo asahlukanga ke nokuthi South Africa isese colonized ngoba manje kufuneka ifana ukuthi uyabullet ngoba kufuneka manje uhamba uyobuza America ukuthi singasebenzisana nane country so noma singasebenzisani naye lokho ngokuthi ngeke kuze kwenzeke. Bengithi ka ngikulethele bese ungitshela nawe ukuthi uma kuqhubeka kanje ubudlelwane nekusasa lalomshado weANC kanye neDA kanjani. Mina nawe sidibana ivideo landelayo ngiyabonga.